Welcome to the Clemson Dubcast, Friday, January 27th edition. Over at the Clemson football offices, they are gearing up for this weekend's Elite Junior Day, and our guy Paul Strelo is going to have elite coverage of it through the weekend, and of course culminating with the much-awaited Monday AM Insider at TigerIllustrated.com. My good friends Blake Smith and Brooke Archenhold have been part of the podcast since the beginning, way back in August of 2018. They have an accomplished team of personal injury attorneys at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold based in Greenville. They are Clemson people, and their skillful attorneys have decades of experience in complicated litigation matters, taking a special interest in medical malpractice, nursing home abuse, and neglect, car accident cases that have left the individuals involved in serious trouble. For a free consultation at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold, call 864-990-4581 or online at parhamlaw.com. That's P-A-R-H-A-M law.com. Solero Communications, formerly known as Tandem Payment, is a full-service integrated electronic payments provider powered by leading-edge technology. Solero provides a wide array of merchant solutions, simplified payments. They make onboarding, taking payments, maintaining risk management and compliance, and getting support quick and easy. At Solero, they're all about helping you achieve sustainable growth as a business. Taking payments isn't the only thing your business needs. With Solero's solutions, you can manage inventory, sell products and services via social media, schedule staff, track sales, get reports, and much, much more. Find out more about Solero at solerocommerce.com. That's C-E-L-E-R-O commerce.com. When you're ready for a complete renovation in your home or business, open the door to more with Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Their local experienced team will totally transform any room space, from beautiful floor coverings to construction to finished details. Harris handles every step of your renovation process, whether it's a kitchen or living room or an industrial or educational setting, like some of the positively stunning work they've done at Clemson University. Go to discoverharris.com and experience a total renovation transformation from Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Okay, a few weeks ago, we did a series of articles sort of exploring the backgrounds of both Cade Klubnik and early enrolled freshman Christopher Vizzina. Thought we would share some of the raw audio from two of the most prominent conversations we had. We'll start with Todd Dodge, legendary Texas high school coach who coached Klubnik at Westlake High School, and then Jay Mathews, athletic director and also quarterbacks coach at Briarwood Christian Academy in Birmingham. He and Dabo Sweeney go back a long way, so really interesting stuff there. All right, here we go. Enjoy.
I've got some buy-in to that place, and now I get to go and follow him. And then Westlake is a place that I finished my career, and the defense coordinator, Tony Salazar, my guy, he was my guy for 10 years. My last 10 years, he's the head coach there. So I've got two people that are very, very close to me in my life that are the head coach at the former place I coached. So it's a good deal, and I can go back and visit with those coaches and players, and just it's play a little golf along the way. And so far, so good. I can't tell you I hadn't gotten the itch come playoff time this year. It kind of hit me, kind of missed it a little bit.
Yeah. I don't believe that was me you were talking to when you were talking about coming to Clemson for that long. Can you? I don't know about that.
Well, we had a plan all along, sometime in the fall, to go to come see Cade play, and he and I we kind of looked on the schedule, and it looked like week 3 against Louisiana Tech would be a good week, and so my wife and I left on a Monday. I want to say it was September the 12th. And we just took off, and we drove, I forgot where we stayed the first time. Anyway, our first destination was Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we stayed in Chattanooga for 2 days and had a great time. And then we went on to Asheville, North Carolina for 2 days. And what a beautiful place. And then we came to Clemson for the weekend and spent 2 days there in Clemson around with the Klubniks, with his mom and dad, and with some other friends from Westlake, and tailgated and just had a great time. And bonus was Cade got to play and got to visit with him after the game. And then the next day we took off on our way back to Texas and stopped along the way and played a little golf in Birmingham. And and then kind of by the time we got back, we were heading through the Dallas-Fort Worth area, on our way back, and lo and behold, my daughter goes into labor and has my fourth grandchild. So we kind of pivoted and went on to Fort Worth to enjoy that. So yeah, it was a fun trip.
That has to be kind of a blissful existence and something totally foreign. I mean, I'm guessing you never experienced not having anywhere to be and nothing to do.
No, I mean, I was kind of one of those guys, like a lot of coaches are. It's kind of our joke all the time is that, during football season, if anybody ever wanted to, take a coach out, if anybody wanted to, knock him off or something like that, it wouldn't be hard because you know exactly where he is every 5 minutes of the day because the routines are so regimented. And we love that, and that's just what makes us who we are as coaches, But at some point, it was time. And I don't know if I'll ever get back into it or not, I'm still young enough if I want to, but right now I live out in a beautiful place out of about 35 miles northwest of Austin. It's called Horseshoe Bay, and it's a kind of a golf course retirement area, and so it's a lot of fun.
I've read the anecdote of your wife way back when, I guess in middle school when she said, "Hey, you might want to put off retirement until this kid and maybe some of his teammates come through." Do you remember exactly when you decided, okay, this is going to be the time and I'm going to go out sort of with him and then with that class?
Well, because when we got there, to be honest with you, when we got there, the initial plan was 6 years. And what the thing about 6 years that in Texas, that's a full rotation of your program. That would take a group of seventh graders all the way through seniors. That's kind of one whole cycle of your program. And I just, at that point I could fully retire if I wanted to, with full benefits after 6 years. And, but I wanted to see if we could, what we could do with one cycle. And we won a state championship in 2019. Well, Cade was on the team in 2019. He was a huge part of that as a sophomore. And I kind of intentionally played him on the varsity because I knew that that going forward that he needed that grooming. But as that season went and the season ended, I'll be honest, kind of selfishly, it's kind of like I invested in this kid, through his sophomore year, and he played a lot and got a lot of, and it was almost like having a starter from a 15-0, 16-0 state championship team coming back. Even though he wasn't the full-time starter, he had I think Cade had 150 quality reps, snaps as a sophomore. He threw for about 1,000, rushed for about 400, as a sophomore. And so that's about the time, probably right when that 2019 season was over with. I pretty much knew I was gonna see this group through.
Are the no contact jerseys there black or are they red? Todd said black, but then I read.
Yeah, they're black.
Black,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where they are at Westlake. Yeah.
Okay. Cade actually said after the ACC championship that his experience as a sophomore really prepared him to experience some of the same elements this season with learning how to be patient. Can you reflect on that?
No doubt. Cade, I did something that that I had never done before. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I played 3 quarterbacks for the first 7 games and played them evenly and had a plan for who was going to start each one of those games and who was going to come in second and who was, and kind of how the rotation was going to be. And it was Cade, who was a sophomore, and then a kid named Klubnik, who is he plays for Illinois now, and then a kid named Drew Willoughby, who went on he plays Division III football at a Salem University somewhere up in Massachusetts somewhere. But it's kind of like going into those 2 seniors, their senior year. Kirkland was a guy that was a really good baseball player, and I don't know about other states, but a lot of times here in Texas, if someone's big time baseball and they don't get exactly what they want in football, they go straight baseball. And then Drew was, he was one of those kids that was just ate up with football. He was football, didn't play a whole lot of sports, but I guess my point is going into that year, I wanted to, kind of honor those 2 kids for staying with us, because most of them, a lot of them I find out they transfer or they go straight one sport, and I really appreciate it. Then I got Cade, who is borderline. He's not quite ready to take over full time, but the work that we put in to him, it benefited us greatly the next year. But one of the things that Cade and I've talked about a lot, that the spring before his sophomore year, which was that would have been his freshman. He was a freshman. You talk about those jerseys. If I've got a kid that is a returning starter going to spring ball, he's played 15 games for us the year before, whatever. And guess what? In spring, he doesn't get hit. But if you haven't done anything yet, you're going to wear that black jersey. You're going to wear the red. You're going to wear the same jersey as everybody else, and you're going to be free meat. And that's just the way it's always. And I've never understood how anybody can fully prepare a quarterback for the next deal if you don't fully put them under the gun, so to speak, and turn the speed up. So I always told like Cade, I said, I'm going to spend one spring, I'm going to put you in a blender, and I'm going to make it go way too fast for you. I'm going to make it way uncomfortable for you, and it's going to benefit you in the long run.
3 quarterbacks. That sounds like something Spurrier did way back when.
Yeah, and it was one of those deals that kind of the thing about it is that after I told them originally, I said, because we had 2 non-district games, and then we had a district game that was against an opponent that I could probably still experiment and still win the game. So, but I told them all along, I said, y'all don't get this wrong. If anything goes sideways, if somebody gets a hot hand, I'm going with them. But anyway, so after 3 games, the first 3 games of the year, collectively, these guys were throwing for like 350 yards a game. They were averaging 5 touchdowns. They had 15 touchdown passes in the first. They had no interceptions. The completion percentage was like 75% between the 3 of them. And so, you put them on against us. Shit, guys. They ain't broke. So we kept rolling along, and injuries, little injuries. None of them ever got hurt real bad, but little injuries kind of forced my hand as we got deeper into the season. Cade really. The one game that we lost in 2019, it was against our big rival, Lake Travis, and I started the senior, the one that ended up being our starter through the state championship. I started him in that game, and he was playing well, but he got a concussion. Cade came in, and we were behind, and he led us all the way back, and we got beat 26-25. We missed a field goal this time. Cade had taken us all the way down the field. We spiked the ball, got the ball, and missed a field goal. And so that was a great experience for him to really step up. And then he got a little dinged up. He started the next 2 games, and he got a little dinged up. And so bottom line is, it worked out great for us because we won a state championship at the end of the year, playing 3 quarterbacks.
It's interesting, his experience this year, even though there are lots of similarities with his sophomore year, having to be patient and all that. The one dramatic difference is he performs this year. He comes in garbage time, as you know, against Georgia Tech.
Yep.
Leads the third stringers down the field.
Yep.
And that creates Cade mania with the fans and even media. I'm just curious. I know you talk to him a lot. Like, how does a kid manage that? I mean, when he's a competitor, but he also has to have some detachment or some, I guess, self-awareness to say, I still have a ways to go. I'm still not ready. All that stuff. The balance of those just kind of fascinates me.
Right. Well, we talk probably twice a week throughout the entire season. And I always tell Kay, we'll talk about this play, that play, this series, tell him how proud I am of him. I'll ask him about his grades. I'll ask him about, how everything's going with teammates. And then we usually end the conversation where I'll tell him, I just want to remind you that the second string quarterback in every college town is the most popular guy in town. He goes, yep, I understand what you're saying, Coach. I said, so, be humble, be hungry, and be a great teammate for DJ, and I can give him that kind of advice because I went through it. I went through, it's a long time ago. I'm 59 years old now, but in the early 81 through 85, I played quarterback at the University of Texas, and I was the number 1 quarterback in the state of Texas coming into UT, and everybody wanted to see me play early. And, I mean, I was I was people calling my name before I'd ever even thrown a pass in college. And so I had to went through all that and got really good advice at that time. And then, I became, so I was the number 2 guy for a while. I was the starter that everybody loved because we were, beating people. We beat Auburn and Penn State 2 weeks in a row to start my sophomore year, and they were both the number 1 team in the nation. And then the bottom fell out. All of a sudden, I'm the bum, of the town. And then, I've been through every emotion that a Division I quarterback in a crazy college town have been through. So I can, honestly give him that kind of advice. And I am so glad as his coach, his high school coach, and as someone who loves him and just and cares for him, is that things have played out the way they have. And he didn't, that Dabo, after he came in and, gave that sample size against Georgia Tech, and they didn't just, boom, you're the starter. Because I've just seen it happen too many times that, all of a sudden, he's probably doing a good job, but he doesn't do as well as everybody thinks he ought to. And then people turn on him on that, and then the confidence issues happen. So I think it's been really good for Cade, this whole scenario.
Yeah, it's easy for fans or whoever, in hindsight, after the ACC championship, to say, oh, you should have had him, you should have put him in early in the season, and then you could have beaten South Carolina, this and that. But one element to that is DJ was actually playing really well for a time.
Absolutely.
And then, I don't know, tell me if you agree with this. My assessment of Cade for a stretch there when he would come in, including against Louisiana Tech early on, was game's still a little fast for him, putting the ball in danger, which you can't have, and like you said, you don't want the confidence thing. You don't want to shatter the kid's confidence early in his freshman season. Is that all fair in your mind?
That's all fair. Absolutely fair. Probably the game that I got to watch the least of getting to really see his body language and everything was the Louisiana Tech game, because I was way up in the stands, but I watched every game that he got the chance to play. And between his body language, his eyes, you could just that nervous energy that kind of gets in the way sometimes. None of that was evident in the ACC championship game. And I think going through the process I think they built this quarterback the right way. And I think he's, about as ready as any true freshman quarterback could be to start in the Orange Bowl, against Tennessee. I read somewhere the other day that he's the first, quarterback in modern Clemson history to get his first start in a bowl game as a freshman or something like that. And so I think it was built the right way. And but he, as I watched him play in the ACC game, the one thing that I told him, that I was so proud of him is that his body language, his eyes, his temperament at the line of scrimmage was elite. I mean, it's literally, because Cade is one of those guys that you want. He is such a high energy kid. Well, guess what? Wouldn't you want that as your quarterback? Wouldn't you want a guy that rallies other people and is feisty? And yeah, you do. And that's who he is. But when you're someone like that, you have to manage that. And he did it. And he, of course, all through his time that he's played for us, I tell you, probably one of the biggest things that I miss about coaching right now is calling plays with Cade. Cade is my quarterback. It's a lot of fun because he's so versatile. I mean, there's just, I'm very smart, very athletic. There's not anything, when you say from an athletic standpoint or arm strength standpoint or, that after repping for a while that he can't do. He's very versatile.
His short area quickness combined with the top end really seems like quite a package, quite an extraordinary skill set.
Yeah, it's unique because he is a guy that during the time that we have, of course, I've followed Clemson's offense through the years, and the offense that he ran for his whole life at Westlake, they're asking him to do a lot of the same things that he did when he was in high school. So the big picture things, it's kind of familiar, and as far as the zone read stuff, and as far as the true quarterback run stuff, and then the RPO game. I guess the RPO for us at Westlake started about 2015. I think Sam Ellinger's junior year we really started, and it became a ball. But Cade's like the very best RPO guy that I've ever been around, and because he just so quick with his hands and his feet, and then he's always been a great deep ball thrower, and people always say, well, if you don't throw the ball 70 yards, and I said, well, I don't know that anybody could. Why would you need to throw the ball 70 yards in a college football game? I mean, probably never going to protect that long. Cade is great at dropping the ball, nose down, at about 45 yards, and but he can make. I think I don't think everybody's seen that. He can make all the throws.
Were you? The performance in the ACC championship game was such a revelation because, he, like you said, he was magnificent. Were you surprised by it?
No.
Okay.
Not at all, because, no. One of the things that I kind of distracted myself but a while ago is one of the things I think that has gotten Cade's way. Cade had to overcome it. I told him it's kind of like the Louisiana Tech game. And, after the game was over with, he and I got away from everybody. We're talking. I said, and he admitted, I think his first throw in that game was a slant route, and he stoned that ball a million times, and he puts it between the chin and the Adam's apple. He puts it right on people's neck, right where it's supposed to be, and he threw it low, and so we were talking about that. He goes, Coach, he said, yeah. He goes, I don't know what's happening to me. He goes, when I went in the game, they didn't even tell me until like right now. They just told me, go. and I didn't get a warm up. There wasn't, there wasn't any plan at the time, or they didn't tell me 2 series ahead. I said, you just learned a very valuable lesson of the life of a number 2 quarterback tonight. I said, the number 2 quarterback, his worth to his team is be ready at all time. You're not going to get someone tell you 2 series ahead of time, hey, by the way, DJ's going to get hurt in 2 series. Start warming up. That doesn't happen. And I said, I bet they planned it that way just to see how you'd react, Because Cade he's a big routine guy. He loves his routine. He loves making sure that he gets right. And so it was funny that he said that, and he goes, "Yeah, Coach, you're probably right. They probably did that on purpose." I said, "They may have, may not." I said, "But put that in that old memory bank, and that's just a lesson to be learned."
He's such a film junkie, and he watches so much that he spots tendencies. Like his dad was telling me, that Cade was telling him after the ACC championship that he noticed that particular corner, if his feet are sort of aligned a certain way, that means he's going to play a certain technique. And then this one defensive end, he crashes every time. So when you run it that way, but then there's there has to be a huge challenge during a season when you're the number 2 guy and you're a film junkie and you're studying tendencies of a new defense each week, and you don't even know if you're going to be in the game. Is that the biggest challenge? Like you said, staying ready and being as locked in as you would as if you're the starter, but you're not the starter.
Yeah. Well, any competitor, and gosh, is he a competitor, they're going to put the work in and they want to play. And it's hard to get yourself, to be honest with you, to be that unselfish, and he really is. It's just, the thing about, and I think that this helps Cade. And one of the things that I remember back when we had those three quarterback deals. And I always told all of our quarterbacks, when it comes to quarterback competition, don't wait till someone says you're the starter to start acting like the starter. You know what I mean? Don't say, this. The head coach had a press conference and named you to start, and all of a sudden I can start leading people. You better start leading people, now, because I want to see who is going to. And I went through that whole thing with those 3 kids, going into that 2019 season. Well, if you had come to practice and you didn't have anything to do with our program, if you had come to practice and you saw us practice for a half an hour, and I asked you which one of you think is the starter, that you'd say it's that number 6, that sophomore. Because he acted like he was a starter, and I think that's, I don't, sometimes, when you're either going through a quarterback competition, first of all, coaches want to see if you'll take over and be a leader. And then sometimes when it's been established, you're the number 2. Well, it doesn't mean you have to take a back seat as a leader on the football team to anybody. Just because you're the number 2, you can still encourage people and be a leader. And I believe that's probably what Cade has been doing. I hope that's what he's been doing. A lot of times everybody says, well, you got to defer to the starter, and the starter, want to step on. Well, you can be supportive of the starter and still be a worker bee and be an Energizer Bunny kind of guy, and encourage other people. So that's just my take on it.
If you're talking to him twice a week, what's your recollection of the hardest part of the season for him looking back?
Oh, I guess probably the Notre Dame game, with the interception, and that was tough, just from standpoint that I don't think it had as big a factor on the end of the game, but he felt like he let his teammates down and so forth and so on. But that's probably it. And getting back to your question is kind of also to get back to your question about the ACC championship game, and did I Did it surprise me? No. And because they turned him loose in that game, there was no spoon feeding him. And when he came in the third series of that game and the rest of the game, to me, and they're the coaches and they do a great job. I love Dabo, love Streeter, all those guys. When they put him in the ACC championship game, there was no spoon feeding him. Like we want to make sure we protect his confidence, like you do when you put a young freshman in at the end of a game and mop up duty. They turned him loose, and I asked him after the game. I said, "Did that feel good?" He said, "Coach, it felt so good to just free flow and feel like I'm trusted." And that doesn't mean that they don't trust him, but sometimes, and I've been there before. It's sometimes calling plays for a kid that, you want to build their confidence up is tough because it's like, I can't do this because, and then I think now, I think it's probably, Betty bar the door, let's roll, and turn him loose.
Yeah, against Syracuse, they were sort of spoon feeding him. Yeah. And then he one of that I've just noticed just his, and I think, you cover them and people, now it's Clemson saying, the kid is probably, if you're going to run a tempo offense, an offense that is no huddle and needs to get people lined up, and needs to get information from the sideline and get information to other people at the line of scrimmage and maybe sometimes get you couldn't find a better person, a better athlete to do that. Cade, there's a lot of good ones in the America, but he's talk about built for it because you never have that guy, come on, get your motor running, son. You never have to tell him that. Like, let's go. Let's get a little energy about you, That's just something that, as I coached him for 3 years, I never had to say with him. And he just, and we were a team that wanted to go. We went fast. We were trying to snap the ball about every 14 seconds, and he was really good at that kind of stuff. The Notre Dame sequence, I'm certainly not asking you to criticize the coaches, but as you're watching just yourself, are you saying, wow, that's a tough spot to put him in, but he shouldn't have made. You can't throw across your body like that. Are you thinking both?
It's funny you say that. I was traveling that day. I actually never saw. I never saw the clip of the Notre Dame interception. All I did was, hear about it later on that Clemson lost and Cade threw an interception. I talked to him about it, but it wasn't like I could really coach him through that. The whole scenario. So I really can't hardly comment on that one.
When DJ starts to struggle, as we said, for 6 or 7 games he was playing really well. But once he starts to struggle for a prolonged period, are there people back in Austin who you hear sort of a clamor of, hey, why isn't Cade playing? And is that a sentiment that?
Oh yeah, sure there is. But those same people here in Austin are doing the same thing at the University of Texas too. They're University of Texas fans, and they're also Cade Klubnik fans because they live in Austin. And the Westlake people, yeah, they are. Everybody's. But once again, the thing that I, as a coach, can know is that if I start being critical, or if someone back here in Austin starts being critical, guess what? We've never been to a practice. We have no idea what's happening day in and day out. I don't know. I've never had a conversation this year. It's not like I'm one of those guys. I'm gonna call, Brandon Streeter up and say, hey, how are Cade's practices going? That's meddling. I'm not gonna do that. Cade can tell me one thing. So coaches, they know more. They know a whole lot more about their team than anybody else does. So that's kind of my deal. And that's what I tell people back in, that in Austin, and a lot of people say because they're fans of Cade and they love Cade and we've seen him play and they. Hell, a lot of times they don't even watch. They don't watch Clemson play. They just see the results of the game. And, maybe the completion percentage of DJ, and all of a sudden say Cade ought to be playing. And the way I look at it is, hey, did they win the game? Or Clemson still went, I guess, 10-2 in the regular season. I tell you one thing: there's a whole lot of people here in Austin, Texas, would like to be 11-2 right now.
As a coach, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So they're still obviously playing at a high level. I'm just glad our kid's there.
As a coach, I'm sure you're watching the body language of the players around Cade in that ACC championship. It just seemed like everything lifted. You could see the receivers perk up, sort of knowing that the ball was going to get out more quickly, and it just improved everything, the whole operation. Did you see that too?
Well, that's part of leadership, that as a quarterback, that's why I was telling you, as a quarterback, that you start to build before you've ever been a starter or been put in a critical time like that. You know, part of leading is is being accurate. I mean, you want a group of receivers to think you're a good guy and like you. Put the ball on them. They'll start liking you a whole lot. They'll think you're a great guy. I mean, they don't care where you came from. They don't care what color you are. They don't care whatever. They want you to put the ball on them. You start doing that, and you do that consistently in practice, and all of a sudden they go, "Oh shit, you know, here he is. Let's, you know," and he's now doing it in a game. And so, I guess it didn't surprise me. Because that's just, we have a deal at our place. We have what we call RVAs, routes versus air, and it's a 10-minute period every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I've got him and his main backup and a couple of JV quarterbacks, and we go through that with all of our top, with probably 8 receivers, and we'll during that time we'll throw. Usually we'll get about 75 throws in during that time. And it's really quite often the ball never hits the ground in that time period. Never. And with him, it definitely doesn't. I mean, he's one of those that could literally, I mean, if the ball hits the ground for us during his junior and senior year when we're just going through team offense or routes versus air or our screens and specials period, a lot of people look around and go, "Oh, something wrong with Cade? Is he feeling bad today?" Because the ball just doesn't hit the ground. He's that accurate.
How much do you think his track experience helped his football acceleration and sort of top-end speed?
Well, top-end speed, definitely. He's always been a track kid. His older brother was a really good track athlete for us, Reed, who, went to Yale and played wide receiver. They both are built like, I mean, the one thing with us at Westlake is if you play football, you're going to run track. Now. And you may not end up running a track meet, but you're going to train. And I believe that there's only one way to get faster, and that's to run. Well, Cade has been, since he was younger, they've always competed in track. I think even before he was in junior high. But he's just a real good athlete, especially the triple jumping and the long jumping was the thing that caught our eye was when he was in junior high. And then, of course, when he gets to high school and I want all of my quarterbacks definitely to run track because that's an opportunity for them to get faster, but it's also an opportunity for them to lead, and I think Cade would tell you, one of the harder things that he's had to do in probably his athletic life is to run an open quarter or a leg on a mile relay team when a whole lot of people count on you. And that there's some toughness to that. And there's also some, all eyes are on you, and you can either, give up or you can like gut it out and push through and get your best time, that you can. And, but to me, his best track event was the 200 meters, and I personally like watching him run it because he's like a slingshot coming off that curb. he can skin it pretty good coming down that around that curb.
Do you get the same sensation when against North Carolina when you see him turning down the sideline and turning it up?
Yeah, and he's always been funny to me. He's tried to shy away from the dual threat, quarterback. People want to call people a dual threat or a mobile or a pro style. I said, how about a good, efficient quarterback? That's what you are, because we asked them to, we asked him to be a 70 to 75 yard rusher a game in his career. That would be, a true quarterback run. That's kind of our, sometimes that would be, if I played a game that I didn't need him to run, I'd take runs off of him. But there's some games I need him to rush for 120, 130, and for us to win a game. And, state championship 2020 when we played South Lake Carroll, he threw for 220 and he rushed for 90, in the state championship game. And probably that 90 yards that he rushed for was probably a big difference in the ball game because, when he had a couple of 50-yard runs, and at the time he was running, he was the fastest guy on the field. 22 people that are on the field. Obviously that doesn't carry over necessarily being the fastest guy on the field to Division I Power 5 football, but he is a guy that if he needs to accelerate and go get 7 yards, he can do that well.
Is one area he might need some, speaking of big-time college football, might need some refining is just getting thicker and stronger to hold up?
Yeah. No, I definitely think so, and I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that's going to be a problem. His family is a tall, long, lean family anyway, But he's never going to be 230 pounds, But I remember when his brother Reed, and they're so much alike as athletes, and they're very similarly built. Reed's a little bit tall, but when Reed came back after his first year, he had really thickened up when he got in the weight room the right way and everything. So I expect for Cade to continue to grow in the weight room.
You deal with a lot of schools and kids who are getting recruited, and you've been around a long time. Just curious how different Clemson is to you, just sort of culturally, and obviously they were very magnetic for him. They were very magnetic for the guy they just signed, Christopher Vizzina. Both of their mothers told me about the NIL topic. They said, we don't give a crap about that. We just want to go somewhere where he can be nurtured and grow as a man and this and that. How, in 2023 almost, with college football just really the landscape kind of being turned upside down in a hurry with all the portal and NIL and all that, how different is Clemson culturally to you? How much do they set themselves apart with sort of their value system that doesn't really emphasize the transactional part of things?
Well, they are definitely an outlier right now, and to me, in a very good way. When Cade really took off, and I could tell that he really liked Clemson, along with some others. It didn't surprise me when he and Coach Sweeney got to know each other. I met Coach Sweeney in 2003, maybe 4, probably about 2003 or 4. I brought my son Riley, who's the head coach at South Lake now, to the Clemson camp, and Coach Sweeney was the wide receiver coach. And sometimes you tell the true character of someone is when me, and my son and his friends that we brought, they were all rising freshmen. When we can't do anything for Clemson, how Clemson treated us, they treated us like kings. And Dabo was so, welcoming to us and all that. So I was glad that he was getting recruited by Clemson. When they met, they're like, personality-wise, I haven't been around Dabo Sweeney a whole lot in my life, but I do know he's a very positive, high-energy man. Well, Cade's kind of the same guy, So that worked really well. And they recruited him without an offer. That just blew my mind. That absolutely blew my mind that they were able to build that relationship with him and stay at the very top of his list. And they told him they were not going to offer him until they, this kid, I think Ty Simpson, the kid that at Alabama had, or they'd offered, that ended up going to Alabama. So, needless to say, when he committed to Clemson as his head football coach, I was very excited for him and for the family. As far as the NIL stuff, I've asked Cade about that. Just, kind of curious George kind of guy, and, hey, what's the NIL? He goes, Coach, I just yeah, there's some guys that have I asked him, so what is anybody approach? He goes, and he said, I really don't feel comfortable taking any NIL. I haven't done anything yet. And that's kind of Cade's, until I do something, I don't think I really deserve any NIL.
Wow.
So that's kind of his take. And then, yeah. Hey, I'm going to have to run.
Yeah, man.
I'm sitting here in this hotel room. And I probably have to check out. That's what grandparents do now. They go from hotel to hotel.
If you're in the Eastern Midlands and PD area and you're in any way interested in buying and selling a home, commercial property, land, need to consider reaching out to Uptown Realty. They're based out of Sumter and run by a friend of mine, Patrick Enzer, big Clemson guy, used to cover the Tigers in a newspaper capacity, longtime supporter of Tiger Illustrated, longtime listener to the Dubcast. The home buying process should be an enjoyable experience, so let Patrick and his staff do all the heavy lifting. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call 803-774-0435 or go to uptownrealtysc.com. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith and Archenhold. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. Want to share a quick word about Founders Federal Credit Union? If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers. In addition to that, all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership as well as IPTAY members. Matt Gross is a proud Clemson alum and the vice president for the Clemson market for Founders Federal Credit Union. Matt's office is located beside the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Old Greenville Highway in Clemson. For more information, go to foundersfcu.com.
I just want to again go back and sort of recreate that ninth grade snapshot of him starting and playing against Ramsey. That just really interests me. So I guess if we could just start by your general recollections of that event and just sort of leading up to it.
Yeah. So, just kind of a little bit background of that. I got to know CV his eighth grade year. I was actually helping out with the middle school that year, and that was during that season that really his best friend suffered a season-ending injury. And CD was kind of the starting wide receiver, but also the backup quarterback that we had used in Wildcat packages and so forth. And he just was a natural at quarterback, because he's one of the best athletes on that team. And so we made the decision at that point, at the end of that season, to just continue him at quarterback. And then I moved to the varsity the next year as quarterback coach. And we started the season with a junior quarterback that was going to be our starter, and then CV was going to be the backup. And then in the first game of the season, the starter got hurt. And CV had to come in as the backup, and And at that point, from that point on in the season, he was our only really option we had as a true quarterback. That's how limited we were at that position. So we had a bunch of these personnel packages that we used that were going to be like emergency situations if he were to get hurt. And, he was young. He's 14. He's young for his grade. And so we were, each week kind of struggling with, how do we keep him healthy, not ask him to do too much, but also, we're still trying to win football games with a pretty good team. And so we really had, real successful season, at that point. Had an early loss to Pleasant Grove, but, went on a long win streak after that. And then, of course, the Ramsey game, they were rated, number one in the state. And he had progressively gotten better and better. And we felt like that to beat Ramsey, we were going to have to kind of open him up a little bit and let him do a little bit more than we'd asked him to do. And he responded really well.
And you're the AD and also a position coach?
Yeah, I'm the athletics director, and then I've been when Matthew Forster became the head coach that year, 2019, he asked me to come and be to start coaching quarterbacks again, which I'd done for years and years. I'd been the previous offensive coordinator, and then went to Nashville for 7 years as a head coach, and have been back since 2011, and had taken on different roles with the football team. But I became his quarterback coach his first season. I've done that ever since. So,
and going into that game, I mean, it was, as I think I heard on your podcast, it was nobody was really giving y'all a shot.
Yeah.
And even the Ramsey players were outwardly expressing their confidence that y'all didn't have a shot. Can you maybe share what you recall from that angle?
Well, if you were to look on paper at the matchup, I mean, they were just loaded athletically, especially up front. Had some guys that had been offered and were going to be Division I college athletes. So, looking at the films, looking at the matchup, again, you wouldn't think that was going to be something that they would be worried about us having a chance to beat them. We were unranked. They're ranked. I think looking at similar scores, I'd have to go back and study it, but so I don't think from Baptist by any standpoint, you'd look at it and think that we were, anything but maybe a couple of touchdown underdog, even though we're playing at home. So, and then of course, halftime they were up 20-7. So. I'm sure there wasn't anything about even the start of that game that would make them think that we weren't going to come back and beat them. So,
his mother, Carolyn, told me she remembers Tim Keenan walking off the team bus before the game carrying a Chucky doll.
I don't remember that, but that doesn't surprise me. I think I remember them making some reference to that, maybe even in the podcast. I wasn't quite sure what they were referring to. So,
what do you remember about? From what I've been able to gather, he was hit a lot, and even on the big throws that he made, he didn't even really see him caught because he was on his back and looking over at the stands.
Yeah, that's something I do remember because of just we were just having a really hard time pass protecting because they were so physical up front, so athletic. And even though we were doing everything we could to double team and help out, they were getting pressure just about every time we threw the ball. And then our starting tailback went out as well. So we were hoping to go in the game, kind of keep it close, run the football, and then maybe have a chance to win at the end. But then our running back went out, and then we're kind of stuck, having to kind of alter our game plan a little bit. So we did have some throws and some double moves and stuff because they were so aggressive. But the problem with throwing the double move is you need a little bit more time to even throw those. It's one thing to catch the ball and throw a hitch, but if you're going to catch the ball and throw a hitch and go, you need that extra half second to be able to throw it. And the one thing about CV that game was, every one of his big throws, as he was throwing it, he was getting hit. But it really showed us that he really has that kind of toughness. He never shrunk back from that. He'd make the throw, get hit, and get back up. And again, he was just a string bean. He was a young 14-year-old that had a really nice throwing motion and really could, really for a young guy understood the concepts and the coverages and stuff. So he knew where he was going with the ball. But to be able to kind of stand in there and make a great throw, even though he knew he was about to get landed on by, 300-pound guy, he stood up and did it.
How much do you think he weighed at that time?
Oh, my goodness. He was probably at that time, and I'm just trying to guess, 6'2", 160 pounds, maybe less than that. But nothing like he is today. When you see him, he looks so big. He's really grown up and filled out, since that time.
And it's just totally unheard of for a freshman to come in and do what he did at quarterback, correct?
Well, we had a freshman in the past play in varsity games. That was 2003, Joe Craddock, that's now the offensive coordinator at Troy. And Joe played probably about half-time, split time with the senior quarterback, but we'd never had a freshman quarterback start ever at Briarwood. For him to come in and start that season and have the record that we had with him starting was really something, and the thing is he just kept getting better and better. There's a lot of things that go on there. It's not just him making plays. It's, trying to be a quarterback that's expected to be the leader and having to try to lead some, but also being in deference to the seniors, And that's where, if you listen to the podcast, Trent Howard, helped out so much, where Trent, some of the senior leaders that year, decided to kind of embrace CV, and then he did a great job of just, playing it as deference to the team. And I think his ability just to work hard, show toughness, and make plays. Of course, we started winning, and then he was actually being a plus from the quarterback position, not a deficit. It just kind of grew. That whole thing kind of grew and was fun to experience.
Yeah, what do you remember about? Not only an extraordinary situation for him in that role, but also for a group of seniors that sort of was intentional about, it sounds like, about wrapping their arms around him, that's not a typical, thing that seniors do with freshmen.
Yeah, and I would say that's kind of a legacy of the great football culture we have at Briarwood, and kind of how we build it on team concepts, and our seniors are taught kind of servant leadership. That was by the longtime Hall of Fame coach Yancey, but then Matthew Forrester in his first year just stepped right up to continue that tradition. And because Matthew had played in that system understood it, had both played and coached with Coach Yancey, that was established, pretty well established. That culture was about, kind of next man up. Everybody do what you need to do to go for team success, not worry about individual success. But then I think you also have to credit those CV in that he just decided I'm going to be a guy to come in and work hard, play hard, and not take any of the spotlight. Just keep his head down and just do his job.
Did you go on the trip with him to camp where at Clemson, where Arch Manning was also there?
Yeah. In fact, I don't have it recorded, but our head coach Matthew Forster has it. But I was texting the coaches a play-by-play of that whole day, especially when it came down to that, and it was really kind of a funny moment. It was kind of like 1 for 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3. It was really the whole thing kept growing, and I think I can't remember the numbers exactly now, but CV was something like 17 of 19, and Arch was something like 15 for 19 or something. I mean, it was pretty neat to see that, and that's when we kind of, because again, we had not been on the road with CV to even compare him with other quarterbacks, but after that day, it felt really good that he was going to be fine. And we actually went to Duke the next day, and I played for David Cutcliffe. He was kind of my coaching mentor. And I wanted Coach Cutcliffe to see CV early and kind of give us a read on what he thought about his, status was going to be. And, of course, Coach Cutcliffe offered him that day. But when we first walked up, Coach Cutcliffe said, he goes, I heard you say, I was trying to remember how he said it. He said, I heard you put it on Arch or something like that to those words, yesterday. So he'd already kind of heard about it as well, So that was a pretty big moment, that camp at Clemson, because and again, there was a whole progression of that where he had gone to Alabama first, and I think was a little bit nervous in that spotlight. It did fine, but with each step, he kind of kept growing and improving and competing, because he wanted to use those camps not as a showcase of look who I am, but of how to get better. And I think he used each camp to get better during that June phase. And I do think that he got better, throwing the better receivers and going through, really high-level competition, and he really stepped his game up, during that time. So
maybe to prove to himself as much as to prove to the outside world, maybe?
Maybe. The thing that he's got that's pretty impressive is that he has a great capacity to learn and implement stuff immediately. And so all the years I've been with him, he's a guy that he'll see it on tape one time and we'll make a correction, and then you won't see that mistake again. Like little things too, things that I think would be actually hard to put in place, but he's got the ability to see a mistake. For example, that at Clemson that morning we went through the drills, and there were about 4 or 5 drills that we don't do in our system. One of them was the triple read off the zone play, where it's not just a double read where you can either give or keep. They have a throw off of it. And because we had never really run that play or done that, he struggled that morning. I remember Coach Streeter was pushing him pretty hard on what he wasn't doing correctly, for that drill. But then when we went through the same drills that afternoon, CV had already adapted and looked great. So he didn't look good the first time going through those drills, but he looked great that afternoon going through the same drills. And that's just something he has, that he can learn and adapt pretty quickly to what's being asked of him to do. Saw the same thing when he went to Notre Dame. Tommy Rees had a couple of off-schedule throw drills that CV didn't do a very good job of. And then when we got back to Briarwood, I decided to put a few of those in just to work with him a little bit. And he had already just added it to his game, which I thought was interesting.
Where did you play for Cutcliffe?
So I was his quarterback at Mathews High School.
Where's that? Say that again. You broke up a little bit.
I was his high school. That was his last high school quarterback. Really, his first quarterback, because he became a head coach when I was playing for him. But I played for him 2 years in high school, my junior and senior year. He went to Tennessee. I went to Alabama, and then when I became the offensive coordinator at Briarwood, years later we reconnected, and I spent all my 90s, early to late 90s, going to Tennessee, and he was helping me develop our system at Briarwood. So,
what high school did you play for him?
BANKS, Banks High School. It doesn't exist anymore.
Gotcha.
It was a Birmingham City school. Yeah.
Who was in the traveling party on these on all these trips that summer?
It was Mom, Dad, and me.
Okay. And y'all went to Clemson, Duke, Alabama, Notre Dame.
Yeah, so we went first up the East Coast. We went Alabama, Clemson, Duke, Wake Forest, and then the one that we went up I-65, we went to Notre Dame, Kentucky, Louisville.
That's it?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay. And can you refresh me? Again, I don't cover recruiting, so I don't have a really good sort of recall or institutional knowledge of a timeline of events as far as his recruitment goes. But can you remember what the communication was like from Clemson's coaches to him at the time? What exactly they were telling him, and then after all those trips are complete, was Clemson just far and away the top object to him? Can you get my drift on sort of just help me paint a clear picture of what was going on in real time?
Yeah, so there's two ways that schools do it. Some schools make a ton of offers to a bunch of kids, and we don't. The term we kind of use for it is it a committable offer. And the idea would be that a coach calls quarterback and says, hey, we'd like to offer you, well, right then if the kid said, okay, I'd like to take it, then the coach would go, well, we're still evaluating the class. So it's like some people, when they offer you, they're just saying, like, we're really interested in you. Clemson does it the other way. They're not going to make a bunch of offers. They're only going to offer kids that they've, looked at, vetted, and so if you they're not going to. I think the only offer they had for CV's class was actually Arch Manning at the time, and I may be wrong on that as far as their actual offers, but they offer hardly anyone, So that's what you have to kind of sort through. So when we went to Clemson, of course, I know Dabo really well. I know Lemansky Hall well. And we've got some Briarwood connections with Clemson because of Trent Howard and Carson Donnelly. Their dads coached with us at Briarwood. They were teammates with Dabo at Alabama. So we knew that they thought a lot of CV, that they were going to track him. But there was no offer coming out of Clemson to CV, which was fine with us. I mean, again, we were using the trip to kind of get our view of where he stood and then just trying to use the opportunity to get better, I think Liam Cohen at Kentucky was the first D1. Well, I think even though UAB had offered him, Liam Cohen was like the first Power 5 offer. And then when Coach Cutcliffe offered at Duke, Liam called me and said that made him feel a lot better, because if Coach Cut offers a kid, then that means that he's really got what it takes to be a quarterback at that level, But once that happened, then it's like everybody starts jumping on the bandwagon then, just so that they've got their name in the hat. Once the first few offers come in, then everybody kind of starts offering, but you're not sure which of those offers are what I call legitimate offers or not, So only time will tell. And, of course, it's never official till signing day,
And then Clemson offered, I guess, was it after Arch told them he had narrowed his list and they weren't on it, or had they offered Christopher before that?
So I don't know what the communication with Clemson and Arch was, but there was a point in time, and I don't have it on my calendar, where it looked like Clemson wasn't going to be in Arch's, list of finals. And then it wasn't long after that CB got an offer from Clemson. But again, I don't have the specifics on that. But I think I mentioned to the Vizzinas when I saw the Arch had not listed Clemson, I told them, I said, I bet Clemson will be offering soon. That was just a guess at the time, but I knew that they liked him and were following him.
Do you remember after that trip was complete, after y'all had been to all these different schools that summer, what Christopher thought of Clemson and where they were sort of on his pecking order?
I would say they would be at the top or top 2 or 3, mainly from the culture, the Briarwood culture, where it's kind of team faith. Just got a great feel to it. I think he felt early on that that was the kind of place that fits him really well. So he thought a lot of that offer. I think what he's told me more than once is he wanted to go to a place that had a chance to compete for the national championship, help him grow to be the best player he could be, but also had that they were willing to embrace their faith as an important part of their team culture.
Now, Arch didn't go to any of these other schools, and that was the only time that Christopher sort of competed with him at a camp, right?
Yeah. And it was definitely friendly. I thought both guys, they high-fived each other, and there wasn't anything. I mean, it was just and to be honest, it's on air. It's throwing the receivers, just that have all the advantage against DBs. So it's, they got their picture made afterwards. I think they got to be friends. They followed each other on social media after that. So, but yeah, Arch didn't make many visits, and because of the name brand and all, has a little bit different way he could approach it,
Is it accurate in your mind to say that, or to assume that Christopher performing like he did sort of matched up with Arch that day at that camp, that was instrumental in his development and his confidence, just knowing that he could do that?
No doubt. I mean, and that would be true of, every stop along the way. When we went to Duke, he just dominated that visit, mainly because the way we train quarterbacks and the way Duke does. So every drill we did is exactly what Duke does, because it's part of Coach Cutcliffe's system, So he just looked great, and of course got the offer then. But yeah, I think every camp we went to where he competed and threw, and then we went back. We made a second trip to Alabama where CV was only with about 2 or 3 other quarterbacks, and threw in front of Bill O'Brien and Coach Saban, and he looked completely different that visit. Looked really good, and I could tell just comparing those 2 visits how much he'd improved just in the course of those few weeks that June.
Where do you think he'd be had Clemson not materialized?
Oh, I mean, he ended up liking a lot of folks. So it'd be hard to tell. I mean, he liked Notre Dame a lot. He liked Ole Miss a lot. He liked Coach Heupel made a good move, at some point. I think we were all impressed with him. A lot of change was happening too. So, Florida came on at some point, and Billy Napier actually came up to Briarwood. And so there was a lot of impressive opportunities for him, but he kind of never wavered on the Clemson as far as being his number one at some point.
With Alabama, I mean, Carolyn says that's an Alabama family. Like, she's been giving away her all of her Alabama stuff. What do you make of that? Just in terms, I mean, that's just kind of fascinating from the outside looking in. Diehard Alabama family is now like totally converting. I mean, I know it's not the first instance of that happening just because of so many of Dabo's connections over there, and there have been a lot of people who have sort of turned orange, so to speak. What do you make of that sort of angle to it?
So I'm only guessing. I just think his rise was so fast. I think Coach Saban likes to see guys coming from a long way off and track them year after year after year. And I think it was such a quick rise. I know Bill O'Brien talked a little bit about him continuing to get up and out. I think wanted maybe a little faster release potentially. But in the long run, so I keep forgetting the kid that signed with Alabama from his class. Do you remember his name by chance?
Not Simpson. I can't remember.
Anyway, so that kid was there with CV that second time we went to Alabama. It was him, that kid, the kid that was going to Oregon at the time, and one other. So there weren't many people there, and they were throwing. And they offered that kid, he was, I think, from either Louisiana or Texas that day. Great kid, and seems to be a great quarterback. But again, I think some of it with Alabama is I just think they like tracking them from a long way off, and I think CV I think he just rose too fast for it to feel good with how they do things. That's just my opinion.
Do you think had they become enamored of him and offered him, do you think that would have been a tough decision?
I don't know. It's interesting. We learned a lot in the process as far as so schools will make certain pushes on the quarterback position based on what they project the quarterback room to look like, And there's some years where there's a little more pressure to sign a 4 or 5 star as opposed to other years based on what they've got coming back. So some of that may have been just, even from an Alabama standpoint, of what they felt like their quarterback room was going to look like. So it's just hard to know. I mean, it's funny because I do think these kids grow up fans of schools, but once you get to that level, when it comes to deciding where you're going to go to school, there's a lot more that goes into it. So we sat down, like for example with CV, and made a list of questions. We knew at any Power 5 school, the quarterback room is going to be competitive, so you can't worry about that, But we talked about, do the players like the strength coach? Do they what do they say about the coaching staff? there's just a lot that goes into it. So it's just hard to know. I mean, it's hard to know. I thought Notre Dame was going to be a big draw just because the Vizzinas are a Catholic family, and it could be that they would be more in the mix. But you also have to think about how far, as a kid's, it'd be easy for a kid's mom to go see him play or not. As far as location, I think matters. So there's just so many factors that go into it in the long run. Is it a place that he actually wants to go to school there, would enjoy being in school there,
Can you refresh me on your connections with Dabo again? I know you shared that with me last week, but I would really like to just get that.
Yeah. So when I was a youth pastor in Birmingham, before I went into coaching, we have a youth ministry that was working on site at different schools. And so Dabo was a part of that ministry when he was at Pelham. I wasn't his youth pastor, but a good friend of mine was. And so that friend of mine said, hey, I got a kid at Pelham that's going to walk on Alabama. I know you walked on Alabama. Can y'all have a conversation about your experience? And I've got these few little tips or words of advice I give to folks about walking on, and so I can't remember if Dabo called me or I called Dabo, but it was his senior at Pelham. And it's kind of like, hey, I know you're walking on. I walked on, and we went through some things. And so that was our initial contact. And then years later, when he was the head coach at Clemson, Joe Craddock, who was offense coordinator and I coached at Briarwood, was working camps when Dabo offered him a job. And so when Joe got to start working for Dabo, I started going up to Clemson, kind of reconnected with them. And then Lemansky Hall actually hired on my staff in Tennessee. So there was just a lot of interconnections. But every time Dabo comes by Briarwood or I go up to Clemson, we've got a good connection just because of some of that past, him going to Alabama, me going to Alabama, knowing some of the guys from that 92 team, even though I went in 82 to Alabama, and then just staying in touch over the years through coaching.
What do you remember from that conversation when you were giving him advice on walking on? Like, what struck you about him? And
Well, I knew everybody knew who he was just because he had a great reputation as a player, tough-minded, and come from a tough family background, but was just a quality kid. And then the talk I remember, because I've given that same talk to hundreds of walk-ons, and it's about staying patient, it's kind of a persevering game. Guard your attitude. There's just a lot of little things I share from my experience. And of course, he went on and just did, he ended up earning a scholarship and then later coaching. So I always kind of admired what he did in that situation.
Okay, hope y'all enjoyed those slices of the interview process that went into the recent series we had on Cade Klubnik and Chris Vizzina. Certainly going to be extremely interesting to watch the progression of both of these quarterbacks moving forward. Appreciate the support of our sponsors for helping make this happen as usual. And then, of course, most of all, thanks to all of you for hitting that play button. Really appreciate it. Cheers.